Hello, and thank you so much for joining me. My name is Julia, and this time I'm going to play with some Lavinia stamps and a lot of embossing to create a spooky Halloween card. I'm starting this with some distress oxide colors on my jelly plate. I have some antique linen, vintage photo, crushed olive and dusty concord, and I'm going to use a brayer to put down my colors and mix them for a grungy looking background. I'm braying on my colors in a few places directly from the ink pad onto my jelly plate. The fun part with the jelly plate printing is you never know what you're going to get. In my case, I assume from my color choice that I will have a lot of orangey and brown shades, but I will tie in those other colors in a minute. It's hard to see that there really is color on the jelly plate, but when I put down my paper and pull that print, the color will be vibrant. For this print I'm using Tim Holtz watercolor paper because I like to blend on that paper and it can handle a lot of ink and water. I'm rubbing the paper with my fingers so I can pick up as much color as possible. And here it is, my grungy starting point for this card. I spray it with water to make the color move and get those unpredictable droplets, and then I dry my first layer. When it's dry, I put down some dusty concord, a beautiful purple that I want to bring back for that Halloween feeling. I smoosh it on my craft sheet, spray with water, and dab my card into the ink to pick up that purple in a few places. Then I bring in crushed olive and a blending tool and go around the card, blending in that green. It's time to stamp, and I have this branch from a second-hand stamp set. I use a stamping platform, but an acrylic block does the job too. I stamp in VersaFine Onyx Black, and before that black branch is dry, I cover it with clear embossing powder and heat set the branch. When it's black and shiny, the embossing powder is melted. Embossing powder is a plastic powder, and when melted I get this dimensional waterproof stamp. I stamped the moon from Lavinia Stamps in VersaFine Vintage Sepia, a rusty brown, because I don't want the moon to have harsh lines. Because the paper is textured, I stamp the moon a few times, and the last time I take the Onyx Black ink pad and dab on some black to darken the outline of the moon. Then the same procedure as last time. I cover it in clear embossing powder and heat set until it's shiny. When that embossed moon has cooled off, I take a brush with clean water. Remember that distress oxides are water reactive, and I carefully cover the moon in water, giving it a moment to react, and use a piece of kitchen roll to pick up all that color inside the embossed lines, brightening the image, creating that spooky, pale Halloween moon. I I have these lovely spooky crows from Lavinia Stamps, and I'm going to place one of them on that branch in that moonlight. I apologize for working outside the camera frame, but what I'm doing is the same thing as with the other stamps. Stamping, covering it in clear embossing powder, and heat setting my cute spooky crow. Now, this wouldn't be a Julia card if I didn't create some layers and frame this creepy scene. I have this piece of orange cardstock and ink up that massive stamp with VersaFine Vintage Sepia, and without being careful or neat at all, I just stamp it randomly around the edges. VersaFine ink is smudge proof when dry, so I can then go around the edges with Vintage Photo Oxide ink and darken the edges, and when I'm done with the brown shade, I go around the edges with black archival ink on a piece of foam. You all know by now how much I like those dark edges. I have this spooky tree from Lavinia Stamps, and I will use only the tangled creepy branches to frame the whole Halloween scene. I'm not being careful at all. I don't have to. These branches just add that extra spooky feeling. After a quick dry, I use the VersaFine Onyx Black ink to darken the edges on this piece too. I just love how these two pieces layer on top of each other. I found this spooky quote, "There is something haunting in the light of the moon," and I printed it out on regular printer paper, trimming it down to a small strip, and I use brown Vintage Photo and archival black ink to go around the edges of this thin strip to frame and tie it in with the rest of the card. I glue the two layers on top of each other and glue down the thin sentiment strip, and last but not least, I cover my sentiment strip in Glossy Accents. And now my creepy, spooky Halloween card is done, and I had so much fun playing with the Lavinia stamps. I hope you feel inspired or spooked, or at least had fun watching this video. The next time I will create a Christmas card with my own designs. I hope you will pop by for that video too. Until the next time, goodbye for now.